I'm Travis Rice with the new Golden Orca breakdown. Now, you see the beauty of the Golden Orca. I think we tried to tackle a challenge that was perceived as an impossibility. At least it felt like that for us. To understand the Golden Orca, you kind of have to understand the Orca. Please see the other episode where we explain and go into depth about my Orca snowboard. You know, the Orca was made to fill the gap in the shortcomings of fish snowboards and celebrate all of the beauties of what fish snowboards have, but also kind of come up a bit short with. With the Orca, it is a directional board, right? Not really meant to go both ways. Taking all of the learnings from the Orca and transferring them into how do you make a snowboard that rides directionally like the Orca, yet still has the benefits of, say, a powder-favored twin snowboard. And that's kind of what we went into the design phase of this board with. How can you have the same feeling of a short directional board, and yet it is the best twin board in powder that's ever existed? Now, the reason why I cared a lot about solving this problem is I love unbridled multi-directional riding in park, resort, and especially POW. And so the Golden Orca was really trying to solve that problem. How do you have an uncompromised ride? And again, like the Orca, you know, it's all about the tail. You know, we've got the nose figured out, but what can you do to make a tail that, again, feels like a directional short-tailed snowboard, yet still has the power and efficacy needed as a spring, as an impact device, as an ollie manufacturer, yet still go switch. I wanted a tail that felt like a nose, because, you know, for many years I had a board that was called the Goldmember. The premise of the Goldmember was I designed that board for the Supernatural competitions that we did up at Baldface, the Red Bull Supernatural, which was all-mountain freestyle competition that, you know, parlaying that into modern times, right? We've got the Natural Selection Tour. If you don't know what Natural Selection is, look up naturalselectiontour.com. You learn a little bit about it. Follow us at Natural Selection on Instagram. We were able to fit the Orca tail in this snowboard and then still have a very low rise powder tip. To make up for some of the surface area that we're adding to the tail of this board, we actually brought the end of the whale tail technology power tail, we brought it about 1.5 inches forward. So technically this board is an even more directional board than the Orca itself, as we've moved that power point in the tail 1.5 inches forward. Now, we did that to try to make up for this additional surface area that lives behind the foot. So you've got this tight camber with the classic Orca power point that then extends in a bit of a kind of a low rise flat for about 1.5 inches, 2 inches into this very low rise powder tail. Now, this thing acts incredibly well going forward. After many iterations, this is what we landed on, which is the Golden Orca. This board's incredible. I happened to win the Natural Selection Tour last year, rode this board all season, riding this board in Alaska. Like, I swear it helped make the difference. It's incredibly nuanced, what we were trying to solve for this. You know, in the end, I think we've kind of created this anomaly of a directional twin, and when I say twin, I really mean twin, that feels like an Orca, feels like a short-tailed directional board. And that's the magic of this board. So the base profile of this board is C2X, which is essentially rocker between the feet, camber from the front foot to the nose, this hyper short camber, Orca camber, to the power point, a flat into a really mellow rise powder tip. This tail is very complicated to make, but we made it. You know, again, magnet traction comes standard, although it's far from a standard feature. You know, the core of this, I think it's 50% aspen, 40% paulownia, and 10% balsa. Now, this board, you know, we put a lot into the considerations of spin weight. We have probably for the last 10 years, you know, every time we talk about a board, we discuss the spin weight. Now, with spin weight, you know, not all weight is equal. A gram here on the snowboard is a lot less important than a gram out here on the tip. Like, it's incredible with centrifugal force, like how much you feel additional weight far beyond the foot. That's where the balsa comes in, and with the lightweight tips, again, we're trying to reduce spin weight because that's where you really feel the weight. You don't really feel the weight in here in the middle. I mean, put a lead ball there, you're not gonna feel it. You put a lead ball out here, like, you will notice. Sizing for this board, you know, I ride this board a little bit more kind of true size. You know, Orca, I step down 7-8 centimeters for. This board, I generally ride between a 157 and 161 personally, which is like a T-Rice Pro or like a normal, you know, Resort Twin. I'll pretty much ride at the same size. I'm 5'11", 190. General resort, park, not that deep, just fun, shreddable. I'll ride a 157 in this board. And 157, it still have plenty of board. Now, the reason you ride a more normal size with this particular board is obviously you want the tail. You know, you want the length and the ability to ride switch. I think I rode 161 in all of the natural selection competitions last year. It's a lot of board, but I think the lightweight component of it, and I tend to ride boards a bit smaller than I think most people might want to ride them. So, you know, take my sizes with a grain of salt. For graphics this year, for the full Orca line, I partnered up with Andrew Schoultz. Give Andrew Schoultz a follow on Instagram. That guy's always working on incredible stuff. Collaborated about 10 years ago, and I was honored that he was willing to work again with me on the Orca line for this year. This board, I really just wanted the most empowered graphic I could that radiated energy out of thy center into thy feet. And you know, this was just a fun top sheet that I felt inspired. I always like darker tips and tails. Don't extend the color pop out to the edges. It has a lot to do with the fact that this board is a twin, the way that we did the graphic. It's a good looking board, come on. For the base, centered knife cut, highest quality base that Lib makes, and it's tough. They all come pretty tough, but this one from the factory comes tough. Remember, the more you wax, the tougher your base gets. Start putting the layers. I would recommend Bluebird. One other thing I want to point out, you know, the nose, it has a very nice, like, low-rise powder performance nose that isn't too soft where it's going to bend up on you. Now, the thing that's worth pointing out is, you know, the tail is really similar. Most of the times with the directional twin, you know, you'll see an asymmetry with, like, how nice and, you know, long and slow rise the nose is, and then you go to the tail and it's just got this like kind of kinky thing. Too much of a kink and it'll fold on you in fresh snow, like landing, any type of impact or a hard turn. That's why it's all about the low rise.